Hey, just before we jump into the episode, I'm wondering if you're using Medic at your company, if you're an AE or a sales leader listening to this. I've implemented Medic 3 times when I was a VP of sales, and now I help sales organizations implement Medic with their teams. I've got a free deal scorecard that you can basically evaluate and score your opportunities using the MedPick framework to see where you've got gaps, where there's risk in your forecast, so that you can identify them and do something about it and mitigate that risk. So if you want to get a copy of that, head over to the website. There'll also be a link in the show notes. Go to therevenueenabler.com. You'll see there's a drop down called the Learning Hub. There's a button called the Downloads. When you go there, you're looking for the MedPick deal score sheet. You can get instant access to that, as well as other things like the What We've Heard slide, my ghosting playbook, cold call scorecard, story builder, AI sales assistant, and so much more. So head over to therevenueenabler.com, go check out the Learning Hub and our downloads, and let's jump into the episode now. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Hit Your Numbers podcast, and today I'm joined by another James. James, you're the SVP at ThoughtSpot. How's it going?
Yeah, all good, thanks. One James to another.
Yeah, easy. I'm terrible with names, but this is one I cannot get wrong. So looking forward to the chat today. And today we're going to be talking about how can you 10x go to market with AI. So I'm looking forward to this one. James, maybe just before we jump into this conversation that a lot of people want to listen to, maybe give us the context. You know, who are you? What's your background? Don't worry about going back to day one, but kind of, you know, the last couple of orgs that you've worked at and the mission that you're on now.
Yeah. So, I run ThoughtSpot across EMEA. We're a AI and analytics software company. So I've been with ThoughtSpot for about 18 months or so. My background's been in analytics software. So previous to ThoughtSpot, I was at Tableau and Salesforce for 9 years. And then previous to that, worked in the business objects ecosystem before that. So I've been working in software for coming up to sort of 20 years now, and in various roles, and been in leadership for probably the last sort of 7-8 of those years.
Awesome. And I bet you've seen a hell of a lot of change over just those 7 or 8 years leading teams.
A hell of a lot of change. Yeah, a hell of a lot of change in the tech we use, the way that customers want to buy from us, the products we're selling. And none more so than in the last sort of 2 years, as the world has sped up and the innovation has sped up, and AI being a massive catalyst to that, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Fun enough, yesterday I was interviewing one of my customers. He's also an SVP, Michael, and we were talking about how he works for a PE-backed firm, and it was interesting, the conversation where, you know, the VCs and, you know, a lot of these other orgs and boards are going to start asking sales organizations how they can become more lean and more effective by using AI, right? And I think unfortunately, like most things, I remember back in 2016 when I became a fairly early adopter of like the Outreach Lead IQ Vidyard, when that came across this side of the pond. It was great until everybody got hold of it and abused it. You know, and it does feel like people are trying to do that with AI, so it's kind of making it a little bit harder. But I think it should be an enabler, not a replacement. And we should be looking at our people and understanding how do we actually make them way more effective. And I guess that's why we want to talk about 10x and go to market today, right? Because if you deploy it in the right way, if you get curious and go org wide from a culture perspective and get everybody aligned to it and behind the mission, it can do, you know, some wild and magical things, right? So from your perspective, like, talk me through the journey that you're going on with AI. What are the things that are critical at, you know, the SVP level, and then how do you, you know, drive that down and wide across the organization?
Yeah, I'll start the journey about 6 months ago. My CEO came and gave me a bit of a kick up the backside. We were going through our next FY planning. So I was presenting to him my headcount plans, where, you know, what numbers we were going to go and achieve, what investments I needed in order to go and achieve them. And I thought we'd put together a pretty solid plan. But he like any good CEO does, they really poked at something that I was paying lip service to, and it was the way that I was thinking about how AI could be a productivity driver in our growth plans. why couldn't you grow at 50% year over year without adding any more heads, was kind of the question that he posed. And he brought it all back to the concept of in sort of when in the developer world, when you're building software, there's this concept of the most productive software developers are like 10 times more productive than the average one. And that's how great software gets built. And some of the early use cases around where generative AI technology has been delivered is in making the average developer as productive as the 10x developer. So why can't you take that same thinking and apply it to sales and apply it to go to market? And I myself wasn't educated enough, and I myself wasn't thinking strongly enough about how to actually go and do that. So it was a bit of a awakening moment for me, of I need to lean into this more. I need to educate myself more. I need to be thinking differently in this journey. Quite frankly, when he first said it to me, I didn't think it would be possible. When he was saying you can 10x your productivity without adding any more headcount, I thought that feels pretty difficult. But actually, gone on a real learning path over since that meeting. Now hands-on, leading a change program within my organisation, and seeing the results of some of the agents we build, some of the AI solutions that are being used, and I'm now really really buoyant on the capability that the AI can bring to us, the productivity gains. We won't get to 10x within the next 6-12 months, but in certain processes and certain areas, we can definitely find 3-4x gains, and that's what we've seen sort of in the early days of this journey. So yeah, bit of a personal transformation journey that came from a strong challenge from the CEO, but has opened up a world of possibilities and a world of going and making our team more effective, which is what we should be thinking about when we're trying to apply new disruptive technology to the challenges we're overcoming.
Yeah, 100%. I love the 10x mindset there. I was on a podcast the other day with an AE manager, and we're talking about ramping reps and how can we increase ramp, increase them to their quota faster, and do it in in less time and less effort. And we're talking about pre-boarding, like what can we do before they join to upskill, maybe give them access to the software so they can start to poke around. And I said, this is a wild idea, but why don't we try and get a rep to make a cold call on the first afternoon? Like, we might not ever get to a point where we do it, but imagine that was our goal, and we all got around the whiteboard and said, how can we actually make this possible? What would we need to do? I did a course myself, running the business that I run now, an enablement business, on how to deliver a high impactful training session that inspires people to take action, and focusing on the stuff that's going to move the needle. Because sometimes there's stuff that you need to teach people, but it doesn't make it into the final cut because it'd end up being a 2-day session. And one of the things that I learned was around like cramming stuff into a short window to help with like the forgetting curve and like people forgetting things in reinforcement. And it's like, hey, if we set ourselves a really ambitious goal, we might never get there, but we'd get a hell of a lot closer, which would be a great outcome. Right. So I love that, I guess, mindset and, conversation with your CEO. How are you kind of approaching that then? So what are you doing from like a leadership perspective with your
Yeah,
team, and then how are you communicating that across, all the way down to the SDRs,
yeah,
and
yeah.
everyone in the org?
So just to come back to your mindset thing, so much of it is mindset. I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and someone was quoting, 2x is the enemy of 10x. In that, if you ask someone to kind of double what they're doing, what they're trying to do is more of what they're doing. Whereas when you're trying to 10x something, you have to actually completely reimagine.
Yeah.
And it's just to what you were talking about there. How do we make them a cold call in an afternoon? Well, in order to do that, if that's the goal, we have to completely reimagine all of our onboarding process that we're going through. And I think that how that applies to what we're doing is, we've had to go through a process where we completely reimagine all of our all of the sales process that we go through every single day, and think about what do we do today, but how would you reimagine this with AI? How would you do different things with AI? So to talk you through sort of the what we're doing, I mean, one of the big things we've done is kind of do the math behind it all. So if you're wanting to 10x, like what are the different levers in your business, and how would you dial each of them up by 2, 3, 4x in order to create a 10x gain in the aggregate. So, number of new business meetings we book, how we convert those new business meetings to a qualified opportunity, how we run a qualified opportunity through to a close, what our average sales price is on that opportunity. Actually going through the process of we have that model built for what we do today, but understanding, okay, where could we dial each of these areas up by 3, 4x? How would we go about that? So then you break down each of those areas, for example, booking a new business meeting. What's the whole process from start to finish that our AEs and SDRs go through to book a new business meeting? How does that look today? How would AI completely transform it if you had AI littered across that whole process? What that then stimulated were some obvious places where we can go and have a big impact with AI. And so, big part of what we've done on the journey is engage with AEs, SDRs, the whole go-to-market org really, and collect the ideas that they have about where they think AI can have an impact on the process, and collecting all those ideas, mapping them in terms of sort of the impact versus the ease of implementation, then gives us a bit of a backlog of solutions we can go and build. And then we've had to go through a process of like, okay, how do we go and build those? How do we set up tiger teams to go and focus in on some of the agents we want to build? How do we go and understand what tooling we have in our organization, what tooling gaps we need, and how do we go and leverage that? How do we go and communicate widely with the go-to-market org so they understand what we're doing and why we're doing it and the timelines around it? How do we go and communicate with sort of the executive sponsors and our CFO and CEO and our chief revenue officer, all those types of people? So we've got this whole program of work now where we know how we're going to go and 10x. We know what we're going to go and do first. We've built some of the first agents and custom GPTs. We've got a couple of tiger teams up and running. We've got a bit of a comm strategy, and we're on that journey. I'd say a huge learning on that journey so far is the change management piece, as well as sort of what you're technically building. So much of AI isn't actually the AI solutions you go build. It's bringing people along on that journey. But it's been also fascinating about how quickly we've been able to move, what we've been able to build. Technology is no longer the limiting factor.
Yeah.
And that's a completely new paradigm that I think we're living in today. And it changes the way that you can think about where you can get gains and the level of the gains that you can go get. And that's the really exciting thing. It's like technology is not the limiting factor here. It's so much of it is then the people and the change that go with it.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I ran an AI workshop with about 15 VPs and CROs a couple of weeks ago. And I think the limiting factor is curiosity. I said this with Michael yesterday on an episode. I feel like we spend so much time right here at the desk in the business. I have a spot. I live in Portsmouth, right by the coast. So there's this bench that I always go and sit at, and I just stare at the ocean and I just disappear. And I come back with the best ideas. And literally, I did this a couple of months ago. Business is now 2 years old, and I am the product. And I was saying to you before we hopped on, and one of the things I notice is that I'm running out of capacity. I'm a salesperson, right? I don't want to stop selling. I'm adding a lot of value. I want to do more of it. So I went down to my spot with a coffee, sat there, stared into the ocean, and got curious. And one of the things I thought about was, is now the time that I can actually clone myself? Like, can I actually, create a twin? And we spoke 3 weeks ago, and the other day I finished building James GPT version 1, and I can now have a phone call with it. So that is just unbelievable, blows my mind. If I was a rep and even a VP still had access to this, just be a completely different game. But you're right, like the technology no more is the limiting factor like it used to be. It is now our curiosity and hiring the right people that are also curious and are hungry and motivated, and they want to do magical, great things, and they're prepared to drop their ego and get stuck in with the tooling. I think it's such a cool place and time to be in sales and in
Yeah,
business.
I agree. I agree. I mean, I think you've also got to give them the space to drop that ego.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've tried to do is be quite open and vulnerable with the go to market org about my own personal journey. And I described myself as 6 months ago, I was a bit of an AI ostrich. I'd probably written definitely less than 100 prompts into some sort of LLM, right? I'd dabbled with it. I'd written a few poems with AI, but I hadn't been thinking, how do I have this as my a daily partner of ideation, or how do I apply this to go and really transform my sales org and go to market org. But just being open with the team about, look, this is where I was. So if you're still there now, that's cool, that's fine. But do start coming on this journey, because it's those that don't come on the journey and don't get AI enabled that will be left behind. AI won't replace jobs. AI will replace the jobs of the people that don't go and enable themselves with AI.
Yes.
I think that's the some of the consensus that's being formed around. If you don't lean in, and if you don't really try and educate yourself and be curious about it, I think those you are going to quickly get left behind.
It's a lot of fun as well, right? Like
So fun.
literally talking to myself, as weird as it sounds, about prepping for an economic buyer meeting and being
Mm.
coached through it. I just thought it was so fun. Like my partner came in, I wanted to show her. She didn't understand it. She's a dentist, but I was like, this is so cool, and I felt like a kid again. Do you know what I mean? And I think sales has needed that for some time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's cool. And you're right. Like, give people the space. One of the things I wrote down, it's something that I think should be included in every organization, is an AI L&D budget. Look, we know most people don't get formal sales training, right? The data's out there, everyone reports on it. But we should really give reps an L&D budget. It doesn't have to be a crazy amount of money. Just let them go and explore with things and test stuff. And let's also give them like 2 hours a month on a Friday afternoon when it's quiet, and say, look, working from home, I know you're big on doing this like in person or off sites, but like once a month you get 2 hours, no selling, no prospecting. Literally, I just want you to go and explore something with AI, build something. On a Monday morning, you're going to present it individually to the group, and the winner's going to get, I don't know, 250 quid or something. Like, have some like space dedicated, blocked out. Otherwise, you'll say to people, hey, we've got an AI initiative, but then you'll grill them on, they haven't made enough outbound dials.
Yeah.
It's like, well, got to give people the space to get curious and play around and break things and explore what's possible, right? Would you agree with that?
It's exactly, yeah, yes, I would, and it's exactly one of the things that we did early on in the journey. One of the first things I did is I stood up at our sales kickoff and said we can 10x our sales productivity with AI, and there were some people in the room that were really excited by that journey and that statement, and there were some people. There were a few skeptical eyes. Let's just say there were a few sort of skeptics in the room. So what we did following up from that, as part of our QBR week, the week after, we carved out 3 hours to do a hackathon and to get all of my go-to-market orgs, so all my SDRs, all my AEs, all my solution engineers, professional services, CSMs, all of them got hands-on with AI for 3 hours. And we broke them up into teams and gave them that space. And that was a bit of a game-changing moment, because those who hadn't really done much in AI suddenly saw how quickly you could go from ideation to solution and impact. And in the space of, we actually got cut short. We actually ended up having a bomb scare in the building on that.
Right. Nice.
So it got cut short. So we only did about 2 hours worth of work, but we came up with 9 agents. So in the
Wow.
space of space of 2 hours, the go to market team. So we're not talking about AI engineers here. We're talking about sellers and and people whose job it is to go and engage with our customers. In the space of 2 hours, came up with 9 agents, and we've actually productionized 3 of those agents that are being used every single day now. So they weren't just things that we've sort of used and thrown away. And that's where it comes back to, like, technology is not the limiting factor. The speed at which you can go from ideation to something that actually has utility is really, really powerful. And I think that was a bit of an eye-opening moment for most people in the room. And so I think it is really important to carve off time, give people the space, give people the opportunity to get hands on keyboard and see it in real life. Because I think until they do get hands on keyboard themselves, I don't think you have that sort of eureka moment and that, sort of moment where you kind of flip your opinion on it.
Yeah, it's just like running a POC in a sales process, right? Once you give the POC to the prospect, the champion, they finally touch like, wow, this is so much better. They
Yeah.
get it. Sometimes some people's learning styles is just very different to others. And I think if anyone's listening to this, maybe you're a manager or a new leader, think about it. Or this is probably the easiest way I look at it, James. I don't know about you, but I think about it like I kind of try and pitch like a production line in like a BMW manufacturing plant somewhere. You've got this massive production line, and at one end you've got a pile, a pile of parts, and the other end is an M5 that's ready to drive out. And on the way, there's different stations that's being built. But that's our sales process, right? It's from ICP and creating a set of accounts and building an account hypothesis through to drying kind of contract. And if that production line wasn't effective, they might outsource it to an external consulting firm to come in and look at it and give the leadership team a recommendation. But just go down and speak to the people that are actually building the car, which is what you're doing, the SDRs, the AEs, the sales engineers, CSMs, and being like, look, this is our sales process, this is the pinch points, these are the bottlenecks, these are the areas of frustration, you guys have communicated that up to us. Stick that up on a whiteboard or up on a screen and say, right, where's the big and quick wins for you guys? If we're going to place a big bet this quarter, where is it? What would make your life so much easier, more effective? And you'll have reps say, hey, I burn so much time building an account hypothesis, and most time I don't even find something compelling enough, so I just default to the cookie cutter template. So go and build an account research assistant that scans the internet in 30 seconds and builds that point of view so that you can spend more time on execution, not the admin side of the job, which is important, but takes 20, 30 minutes to do a proper job. And that is if you know where to look in the first place. And it's just about setting up shop, giving people the freedom, space, creating the right culture that fosters a lot of this stuff, and say, hey, let's come together. What do you think we should do? The building part, like you said, is actually isn't the hardest bit about it. It's actually coming up with the ideas. Like, I've built a business case builder where it asks you like 3 to 5 questions on your opportunity, or you drop a transcript in and it builds a 1-page executive business case.
Yeah.
It's almost copy paste, almost.
That was one of the first agents that was one of the 9 agents we built in that hackathon was exactly that, which now
Business
gets
case.
every single day.
Yeah.
Coming back to your analogy about the factory,
Yeah.
The first strategic deliverable that we're building is a signal to meeting factory. So that analogy is exactly how we're thinking about it. To explain a little bit more about how we're going about it, we've basically set up 2 tiger teams within our business. One of those tiger teams are working on what I would call the marginal gain wins, in terms of there are loads of like prompts or custom GPTs or just cool things that people are doing with AI every single day. How do we capture all of those? And they add like marginal gains to our process. And if you add them all up together in the aggregate, they lead to like much greater gains. So I've got a team that are focused on capturing all those, documenting all those, educating, communicating the go-to-market team on all those. And so that's like one of the programs of work that they're doing. There's then what I'm calling the more strategic deliverables, which is how do we take an end-to-end process that we're doing today and reimagine it with AI? And that first strategic deliverable is this signal to meeting factory. And what I want to do is, or what we are doing is creating a repeatable process where we can input the right signals at the top, and we know with certainty we're going to output meetings at the end. And how do we use AI across all of that process to both automate and make the SDRs and AEs more productive, but also make us more effective in booking those meetings. So what we've done in our process, there's one particular signal that our AEs and SDRs go and hunt for that is kind of like the sweet spot for our ICP. Like if we find that signal, we know there's pain we can go and sell to. So what we're using AI to do is go and automate the input of that signal, go and find that signal as many times as it can. And then once that signal has been found, how do we surface it? But just surfacing the signal through AI in itself is awesome, right? That in itself is awesome. That's a manual thing that our sales team are going to do. But I can't scale that, because if I then just add in more and more signals, what it's going to create to the AEs is just a bunch of noise. So I actually need to automate what they're doing with that signal. So to your point is, okay, I've now got a signal. What's my value hypothesis for that account? Okay, who are the people that are likely to be my champions, who might care about that signal that I've identified and that pain I've identified? How and what am I going to speak to them? What's my email cadence? What's my LinkedIn reach out? What am I going to speak to them if I get them on the phone about? So how do we build agents to automate all of that? So all the AE and SDR has to do is see the signals been identified. The agents then built the hypothesis, the people to reach out to, the cadences, and all the A and SDR have to do is execute. They just have to review the work that the AI has put together, and then go and execute and go and pick up the phone. And by doing all of that, we're seeing like both effectiveness and productivity gains. And then once we get that right, and we're kind of in the process at the minute of getting that right, we can then add in more and more and more signals, and we're going to get more and more and more productive. But we're already seeing, just by identifying the signal, we're 3 times more effective at booking the meeting than we would be normally. So just in that first step, it has massive gains, and then that automation adds additional gains, and then we can scale it up from there. So we're definitely thinking about it as a kind of factory process, and how do you automate the process so that you can scale up the inputs to scale up the outputs.
So we've built the leading skill optimization platform with 400 plus sales lessons, 12 courses from prospecting all the way through to late stage deal negotiation and more, one-to-one sales coaching and AI sales assistance. And I want to give you 7 days free access to the platform. The reason I want to do this is because nobody gets a degree in B2B sales. And after training and coaching hundreds of sales reps and teams in the last 2 years, most haven't mastered critical selling skills, and it's preventing them from being promoted, earning great money, and building a great career in B2B sales. So go to therevenueenabler.com, grab a free trial, and join hundreds of salespeople that are closing their skill gaps and mastering sales. There's a link in the video description. I'm looking forward to getting you set up. Give me a shout with any questions. That's awesome. Like elite, like most people are just going to Clay, right, and doing the same thing that they did with the Zoom Infos and Cognisms, just at a much higher rate, and they're still wondering why they're not building pipe, right? The way that you're thinking about it, again, is that factory, that production line. And, as you're talking through that, my head's going into directions of, okay, when it gets to the stage where it starts to identify a potential champion based on what we know a champion looks like in our context, can it go to Gong and see if we've ever had a conversation with this person before, either at this account or another one? Like my last team, we were selling to enterprise, and you'd find like when the VP of employer branding left Amazon, they would go to Coca-Cola. They wouldn't usually go down to a startup. So we would used to just follow champions, and we'd reach out to them and, book a meeting, and those deals were easier to close as well. So like, hey, has this person ever engaged with us before? Have they ever worked at a previous customer account? And we can use that in our opener.
Yeah.
Like, go and look at all these different, and this is where I think the curiosity really, comes into play, because you have to look at it and go, where do we get a lot of success today without AI? Like, where do we get most of our meetings, and where are the patterns? Where are the trends? And by the way, AI is great at this. Like, if you drew like a win-loss review spreadsheet and drop it into AI and ask for it to spot why we win, why we lose, and that the like consultant level report it kicks out is just bonkers, right? But if you use AI to help you use AI, again, it's a bit of a cheat code.
Yeah. Again, my own personal journey had never used AI to to train AI, but
Yeah.
quickly into that journey, it's I'm wanting to do this, like write me a prompt that's going to get me to that outcome, and then you're asking AI how to get the best out of the capability, and yeah, some of the outputs that you then generate are just that much richer, um, that much richer as a result.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like I went out the other day and bought a third monitor, and it literally just has Chat GPT on it because I'm in it so much. And I've not officially launched it yet, but I've written a book called The Champion Playbook. Selfish plug. I was scratching my head for ages about the name. I was like, what do I call it? What do I call it? I'm not like the most creative in these areas, so I literally just put the Google Doc PDF into Chat GPT and said, look, this is the book. This is the goal with the book, etc., etc. Here's the mission. Give me like 5 ideas that would stand out on a shelf, would be inspiring, would capture people's attention. What would that be? And it came out with some, like, as it always does, some like random stuff.
Yeah,
And it came close to the Champion Playbook. It was just a bit different, but it then pushed me in the right direction, and I landed on it, and now I'm in love with it, and I'm like
yeah.
never changing it. Right, but I've been scratching my head for ages as I'm writing. I'm like, what am I going to call this thing? Again, that's the cool thing about AI is sometimes, especially at the leadership level, you're in the business so much. If you're not on the phones with the reps in a deal helping them close it, you're in a board meeting, or you're preparing a board report, or you're trying to figure out how you're going to make that spreadsheet business actually become a reality. You sometimes just can't see through the trees, and that's where AI can be so powerful. And it's just an ego thing. Like, drop it. It's okay for AI to be your wingman to help you see clearly, and then you'll go and do things just like that, right? And it becomes so obvious.
That topic of that book is really pertinent to us and our organisation.
Yeah, I'll get a copy up for sure.
We're a champion led sale, but yeah, I often sometimes feel like people feel embarrassed by admitting that they've used Chat GPT to get to that answer,
Yeah,
and yeah, like I've had to try and break through that a little bit. Like, I want you, when you're trying to ideate, I want you to be using an LLM as your ideation partner. I want you to be the first thing you reach for is AI in order to solve a problem when you're trying to solve a problem, and that's something to be encouraged, not to be embarrassed by.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was on a call with somebody a while ago, and they were like, "Oh, let me show you my screen." I was kind of coaching them building a custom GPT, and they're like, "Oh, 1 second, let me just hide my chat history." I'm like, "Dude, you got nothing to feel guilty of searching. Like, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I ask it the most wildest questions sometimes, and I know the answer to it. I just can't see it because my head's just blocked up, and just like, yeah, nothing to worry about. Like, just use it as you need to. Use it as your wingman, as your right hand man, and yeah, lots of. And for like, what do you pay? Like £20 a month, £25 a month for the paid plan. It's just, yeah, bonkers.
yeah.
Um, what are you excited about next with AI? Got anything kind of on the horizon that isn't there yet, but feel like it's coming fast?
So I'm excited on this year. I feel like we're literally scratching the surface with the impact that we can have. Um, when we're I think starting to be on the cusp of uh, the autonomous nature of AI, and actually setting business tasks and going and acting autonomously to go solve those. I don't think we're not sorry, we're not there yet, as in the capability of AI isn't there yet, but I think it will be in a period of time. I'm not going to say how many months, but it is probably months,
Yeah,
not years. Setting it the task of our churn's at 12%, and I want to get that down to 10%. Go and own that task, um, and try and help me solve it with you. That's really powerful, right? Like when it can get to that level of sophistication, and I'm fully expecting it to, and I'm fully expecting it to get there really, really quickly. And that opens up a whole new exciting possibility of where it can go. I think the journey. That being said, I don't want to underestimate how hard it will be to get there, because that's the other thing is, yes, it's very exciting. yes, it can have a massive impact, and that is new for a lot of people, and I've spoken about for me. But it's also really hard to get something really productive in a live environment that works every single day. It's not a one and done thing. You've constantly got to be spotting for hallucinations. You've constantly got to be training it. You've constantly got to be refining the solutions that you do build. And so, while it's really exciting about where we're going, like, let's not underestimate the journey to get there, because it isn't, it isn't a magic wand, and you do have to invest the time and effort into it. I think the gains are absolutely worth it, but it does take a bunch of time to get there.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of talk about AI and a lot of time Chat GPT because it's my primary tool. But I kind of talk about it around context and last mile transportation. So if you think about how a lot of cities are set up now, they want you to drive to a big car park and jump on a bus to do the last mile to help with a bunch of things. And I think if you give AI the right context, it can almost get to 80-90% of its destination. And then the last 10 or 20%, you have to, it's like that business case builder does an unbelievable job. There are some like little tweaks that you would want to make, but I'm okay with that because it's probably saved me about 30-45 minutes in general. So I can tweak it a little bit. And the context is just so important. And I think that's where a lot of people are still on the fence a little bit because they've been to ChatGPT and they've said, write me a 2,000 word blog on sales forecasting and it's garbage. Or they've said, write me a prospecting email and it starts with, Dear James, I hope you're well and business is booming, rocket ship emoji. Right, because it hasn't got the context. Like AI is good, but you mentioned hallucinations, and like when I'm building my James GPT AI twin, I've had to like train it to not hallucinate because it's my voice, it's got my tone, like it sounds like me, so that can be brand damaging and things like that. So the context is key. Like I put 350 words into James GPT so far, so it has the context, so it knows how to answer, and it gives you the answer that I would give you. And it's the same with a custom GPT, or what do they call them in Gemini? Is it gems, or something like that? Like you have to give it the context. So again, as an organization and leadership team, I would give little projects to different reps around, like, hey, go and like thoroughly document our ICP, and somebody else go and build a load of battle cards, which again, I've got a battle card builder, but like go and collect all our battle cards, or go and collect all of our persona frameworks with current state, desired state, that whole documentation piece in there, so that you have this big hub of context for your business, not anybody else's, not IBM's, or not that scrappy startup down the road, your business, so that you can feed all of this into it, and then you can ask it questions so that you can get to 80, 85, 90% of the way there, and people can start to trust it. And when they trust it, they'll use it over and over again. And that's where you'll get, like you said, that 10x, or get super close to 10xing
Yeah.
output.
The more intelligence you give it, the more intelligent it gets. Is one of our learnings. So we're doing exactly that. When we're onboarding new, so we're onboarding a bunch of new solution engineers at the minute, and our solution engineering leader is making sure that all that onboarding, all that knowledge that they're trying to impart on our new SEs is being recorded, is being captured, so that the next time we're feeding it into a custom GPT or something like that, and that's all captured, and then that can be used for the next time we're trying to onboard, and the next time we're doing. And one of the threads that's come from that is one of the custom GPTs that's been built, and one of the more tactical things that's been done is we've now got an agent that an AE can go and engage with, that acts like a solution engineer. So the AE goes in, so not to answer technical questions about the product, but I have this scenario with my customer. I'm going to go and try and set up a proof of value. Like, how do I make sure this proof of value is set up in a way that is going to make us successful? And the AEs can now go and interact with that GPT to get those answers to, like, how do I make sure that we nail this POV over our competition, or how do we make sure we hit these success criteria? And the the GPT will come back with suggestions and ideas of, oh well, you probably haven't set up that decision criteria correctly because there's nowhere in this POV where we can go and show this differentiator, or actually one of the keys to the success of great POVs is this thing, and you seem to have a gap there. And it's just another way in which the RSE team can scale themselves. They're a very expensive resource, they're a very brilliant resource, but they're never in the abundance that you want them, right? So it's just another way in which we can just get another 1% of scale out of that SE team, and we build 10, 20, 30 of these solutions. All of a sudden that's a headcount you don't need to go and hire, yet you've still got the productivity gains that you're going to get after. So yeah, that's the way that we're thinking about it as well.
Yeah, love that. I wrote down reinforcement. That was actually the first reason 10, 12 months ago why I got into them. I was going out and doing, 30, 50 person medic deployments, or, 10 person prospecting programs. And, usually the capacity was, bad on the manager to rep ratio. And I wasn't always available to do reinforcement sessions or like listen to calls and give feedback. So I was like, I wonder if there's a custom GPT that I can build around reinforcement. So like you said, their scenario planning. I'm about to go into a 10 person workshop. There's going to be multiple stakeholders. Some of them are champions, some of them are influencers, some of them are enemies. What objections could come up? Here's the context: this industry, this type of business, this location, this maturity. Coaching scorecards, like dropping in a scorecard that you would typically use a few times a month if you got the time to coach a rep. Put it in there for cold calls, discovery, ghosting, demos, business case, negotiation. Like, I've got managers now that can score and coach 100% of reps, discovery calls, or negotiation conversations. Yeah, it took me hours to build, but it's built now, and I tweak it every now and then when the game changes with more context, or as my capability improves, and then I just release it back out, and they're in there again, right?
That's one of the most exciting things that we're building, actually.
Okay.
Sorry to jump in. We're engaging with a company called A79, and one of the agents that they've focused their capability on is sort of sales simulators. So really useful when you've got a new person coming through the door and they're learning your proposition and how to do discovery calls and things like that. But also just people who are tenured, steel sharp steel, giving them more hours on the clock doing sales simulators with real life scenarios. And so you can train these agents, these simulators, to act like your persona, act like the buyer that you're coming up against. And it's scary how accurate they are. You're talking to an agent, but only just because you're not talking to a person. But then it will allow you to do these mock calls, give you the feedback of those, and then show you where you can be better. But then the next iteration of that is then we're going to plug it into Gong to actually do that coaching on live calls, so that the AEs can get lots of actionable feedback on every single call that they do, and then it can summarize to the leaders. Here's across your team of 7-8 reps, here's something that they all do really well, but here's something that they're all missing, or here's something that one person does really well that you should go and educate the other 7 on. And that's the thing, like a lot of the AEs will ask their managers, oh, can you listen to a couple of Gong recordings? And the managers want to do it, but across an hour long call across 8 AEs, that's a whole day gone, out of their time, and just having the time to do it. Whereas we're seeing this A79 solution as a real key way in which we can scale that need and make us better at, make us more effective at what we're doing by using AI to give that feedback, and then making sure that when the sales managers are being plugged in, they're being plugged in the areas that are gonna move the needle the most and are gonna have the most effect. And so that's something we're pretty excited about bringing out as well.
Yeah, totally. I think this statement is wrong if you're true large enterprise, but I think it's still the thinking still applies. It just probably isn't as fast. But I do think if you grab AI with both hands and properly run with it, I do think you can take ramp periods from months to weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. If you really think about it properly, you're talking about, simulators. It's like an F1 driver. They're in the simulator. They're doing it with their eyes closed. They're feeling the way that the car moves and things like that. So they execute well at the weekend. Um, Scenario planning. I wrote down just in time coaching. So just before they go in and do a really important meeting, that maybe their managers like, I've really got to jump on this economic buyer meeting with John. So you're gonna have to ride solo. Oh, hey, here's James GPT, and that person can do just in time coaching and give that person the confidence that they might not, get the winning goal at 90 minutes and win the Premier League, but they can walk off the pitch at 90 minutes with their head held high and go, I did everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. And again, if we think about the production line and go, like you said earlier, like what are those levers that I can pull? Where are those 1% and 2% that over time compound? Collectively, they're huge. And if I've got lack of capacity in my team because I, manage a large team, where can I leverage AI to get my reps up to speed faster?
yeah, yeah. I think it's so powerful, and I would completely agree with you. I think you can drastically reduce onboarding times with AI and get people to productivity that much quicker, which is at the end of the day what new starters want, right? They want to get out there and start making an impact, and so yeah, I think it can have massive gains.
Yeah, I'm just conscious of your time. I got one last question. Do you feel like at some point, I mean, orgs probably have them already, right? I saw somebody's hired a head of CEO content the other day. Was it PayPal? So these roles probably already exist. But my frustration where I am now and my 15 years as a rep and as a leader was always around the lack of training and enablement. I know some orgs are really good at it, but most don't. Nearly all of the orgs I worked at, here's a CRM, here's a quota, here's a product, go hit it. Here's a pip if you don't. Um, I feel like every org should have some kind of expert in their business that is in the trenches with their reps and helping them upskill, close skill gaps, and move the business forward. Do you feel like there should be the same in AI? Do you feel like they'll get to a point where we've got like head of AI in the sales and go to market team where they are literally just focused on like you're doing with your team, but that is their sole job. They're literally on the tools.
I think the most progressive companies are already doing that. So
Yeah.
I saw a job posting the other day for a sales org around head of AI enablement, head of
Okay.
AI go to market as well. I've seen a job posting on. So yeah, I think go to market teams that are taking AI seriously about leveraging AI will absolutely have these roles that are constantly thinking about like how am I applying AI to every single bit of the process to dial up these productivity gains. I'd like to think that we get there, at ThoughtSpot. We're not there yet. I think we'll probably invest first on some more AI engineers to help us build some more things. But
Yeah.
I'd love to think in a scenario in 3, 6, 12 months, whatever the time period is, that we've got a head of go to market AI that is owning how AI can be applied to our biggest problems and the gains that we're trying to and the gains that we're trying to go and achieve and the growth that we're trying to go and get after. That would be awesome if we could get there.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer, right? Like having a really good head of sales ops is such a key component to a growing business. Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like again going back to what we were talking about earlier, I think people are doing it. They're focused on these like go-to-market engineers, where they give them this fancy title, but they're really just in clay doing clay. I call it clay and spray. It's the classic. Let me just go in and roll 10,000 people with a cookie cutter message, but it's been personalized with some kind of variables like first name and job title we've been doing for 10 years. I think what you're talking about is actually, like we said earlier, looking at the entire production line, looking at the factory and going, how do we apply AI? How is it connected? How does it actually make our sellers more effective? Where's our big business challenges around win rate, velocity, attainment, whatever it might be, ramping, retention, maybe not just customers, but people. How can we, improve those areas? That for me is a proper expert, with domain expertise, and huge curiosity around going and breaking down these big challenges and plugging them with solutions.
Yeah.
James, this was epic. I had a feeling it might be. Loved this. Conscious of your time. Where can people follow you?
I'm really active on LinkedIn. So James Smith, ThoughtSpot on LinkedIn. There's a few James Smiths on LinkedIn, so you might have to put the ThoughtSpot thing in to actually find me. But really active there, and that's probably the best way.
Amazing. We'll put a link to your profile in the show notes. But yeah, I'll let you jump to your next call. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to join the conversation today.
Cheers, James.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers. This episode is sponsored by I'm Just Playing, but I do have two things for you today. So we recently released a mini prospecting course, 100% free to access, where I break down the script that my last team used to go from 6 meetings a month to 60 meetings per month. There's a lesson on how to write great first outbound emails. And then there's another lesson on video and voice note prospecting and best practices. And there's so much more in the course as well. If you want to get free access, just click the link in the description below. Now, alternatively, I said there's a second thing. Maybe you don't need prospecting support, but maybe you need help running better demos or scoring your deals with Medpic, or you need help with prospects that are ghosting you. If this is the case and you want to unlock some of these trainings and resources, go ahead and join the prospecting course anyway, because you'll find there's other resources and more content in the mini content vault folder. So go sign up today and unlock these resources.